Within this video, we're going to continue working through the Lesson 6 student guide, Screws. Specifically, we're actually going to be running through this last part, Engine Activity, Tricky Tangents. Now, you may have noticed that we don't actually have a video for the interface challenge, Slide into Bucket B. And this is because it's just short and sweet. Check out the PDF to figure out what it is that you need to do. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and jump down to the Tricky Tangents section. And you can follow along here inside of the PDF. And of course, you can follow along here in the video. So the goal of this section is to use spline points and spline point tangents to create a chain reaction across a playing field to knock a domino into the final bucket. So if I right click and drag here inside of my viewport and press the 9 key, and I'm going to go ahead and zoom out a little bit by using the middle mouse scroll wheel, what we're going to do is we're actually going to have that ball follow a path across the table and hit these dominoes. These dominoes are then going to cause a chain reaction all the way across here and land one last domino inside of this bucket, bucket C, over here on the far side of the counter. So go ahead and press the 6 key on the keyboard to go ahead and reset the camera, and let's begin working with these tricky tangents. So to begin this, I'm actually going to Control or Command Z undo until I get my ramp back to where it was at the very beginning of this project. So there we go. As it is set up like this, this is where I want to go ahead and begin so that we all kind of start in the same point. Now there is another way to actually extend a spline, and that is to select its point at the very end, and I'm going to hold down the Alt or Option key on a Mac and left mouse click and drag on the arrows of the Move gizmo. And when I do that, you can see it actually extends this out with another point. So I'm going to drop this down a little bit and push it over, and I'm going to get it so that it kind of aims at those dominoes. I think that's going to go ahead and work. Now from here, I'm going to go ahead and start extending the dominoes. So let's go ahead and select the dominoes, and I'm actually going to press the 9 key on the keyboard, set my camera way up above, and I kind of move my camera a little bit so I can get a better shot of the entire table. I'm going to select this spline point, and I'm going to hold down the Alt key and click and drag on one of these arrows to extend this. And what I'm going to go ahead and do is just kind of weave this in and out between all of these things on the table to get something that's kind of interesting looking. And each time I want to actually extend the spline point, I'm going to let go of Alt or Option on a Mac and then hold it back down and then begin to move it again. So remember, you got to pick your finger up off of the Alt key or Option key on a Mac to actually extend this out a second time. Now there's something really important that you should probably know, and that is if any of these dominoes are above the table or below in the table, you're going to run into problems. So to double check this, I would definitely move my camera down so I can actually look at this and see that they're actually on the table. And if you find any of these sections that are actually floating off the table, and I'll go ahead and make one here, I'll lift this up so you can see this. All you have to do is select that point, so select the actual spline and the spline point, and then press the End key on the keyboard, and it'll snap down. Now, if you don't have an End key, come up here into Actor, come over here to Snapping, and go ahead and choose Snap to Floor. And this will do the same exact thing. You can see that the hotkey is End over here on the side. So at this point, let's go ahead and play test this and see how this is going to work. So I'll go ahead and press the play button, and we'll watch the orange actually fall down here. And I'm going to move my camera a little bit so we get kind of a better angle. Oh good, it actually hit it. So it's going to go all the way around here, and I'm expecting to get to these points down here in the corner and stop working. And sure enough, you can see that now I have an issue right here. And this is because the spline is way too sharp at this point, so we need to smooth this out. So I'll go ahead and stop the simulation by pressing Escape on the keyboard, and I'm going to go ahead and move straight up. Next, I want to select the actual spline and then select that spline point. And there's two things that we can actually do with this. If we actually select one of the tangents, we can actually move this tangent around, and sometimes it'll kind of smooth this out. You see it kind of gets a little bit longer, so let's go ahead and just pull it this way. There we go. So now we get a nice round curve. If that doesn't actually work, the other thing that you can do, and you can see I've got the same problem on this one right here, is go ahead and use the Scale tool. So if I select the Scale tool, and I click and drag on the dead center of the gizmo, this little white cube, it's kind of hidden right here. I'm going to click and drag on that, and I can actually extend this, and it'll do basically the same thing. Now in this case, it's not going to work really well because I'm actually going to be bonking into the cutting boards on either side. So I kind of have to pick and choose my battles on which one I'm going to work with. So the other thing I can try in this case is I'm going to go ahead and see if I can move this up and over to get it so that it fits in between all of these obstacles. So something about like that. Go ahead and hit the 9 key on the keyboard and take a look at that. Let's go ahead and check this one up here and fix this one as well. I'm going to use the scale tool on this one. About like so. That looks pretty good. And I can also use the rotation tool as well. Make sure that my rotation snaps and everything is actually turned off. There we go. That'll help. Then the last problem that I want to address, and I'm going to go ahead and address it now, is that this domino is not going to fall off the very end here. So let's go ahead and grab this part of my spline. Let's go ahead and use my move tool. I'm going to move this over so I get a domino that's like right on the edge. And if I go ahead and frame it, so I'll hit the F key and then I'll rotate around by holding Alt or Option on a Mac. Grab this tangent. I can actually move the tangent, and this will kind of aim this so that it falls right off the end here. And I do want to really make sure this is like right on the end. Now what I'm looking at is the actual spline point. I'm ignoring the domino right now. I want to get that spline point so it's basically right on the end. And if I grab this spline point that is not quite the end one, the one right before it, and I start to move it around, I can probably get a domino to spawn right at that point. So there we go. So let's go ahead and hit play and watch this last domino to make sure it's not just going to fall in. All right, perfect. So what that means is now I should have a chain reaction that should have my ball rolling through here, hitting this domino, and this domino pattern should actually run all the way through and drop a domino in the very end. So I'll go ahead and play this and we'll take a look. So while we're watching this last little part, I would like to thank you for running through this entire series with us. It's been a blast to work on it, and I'm really excited to see what y'all come up with. And furthermore, this isn't the end. There actually is one last lesson that goes with this, and it is a challenge, more or less, to go ahead and build your own Rube Goldberg machine. There are a lot of objects, there are a lot of materials, there's a lot of blueprints and geometry scripts that you can work with to build just about anything that you want here inside of the Unreal Engine. And don't let that be the end of it. You can go ahead and create your own things, write your own code, and create your own particles.